Hello and welcome to TRIGGERnometry. I'm Francis Foster.
I'm Konstantin Kisin.
And this is the show for you if you want honest conversations with fascinating people.
Our brilliant guest today is a YouTuber, Arielle Scarcella. Welcome to TRIGGERnometry.
What up? How are you guys over there in the UK?
We're locked down. We are
Same.
keeping at a safe distance from each other. But before we get into all of that, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, just tell everybody, who are you? What has been your journey through life that leads you to being on TRIGGERnometry in this very remote and distant way?
Oh, wow. Interesting. I came out as a lesbian at 19.
And that is why you're here.
That's why I'm here, because a lot of your viewers are probably straight men who love lesbians. I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know your viewership, but I'm assuming that's what it is. And you know what? The straight guys have been nothing but gracious and really sweet to me. So it's like I joke a lot about like, oh, straight men, but like literally, I've never had a problem with them personally. Yeah, but I came out when I was 19. I started making content on YouTube about being a lesbian when I was 23, and my content has changed. I wouldn't say dramatically, but politically it's changed a little, quite a bit. And it's gotten to the point where I stir up some drama, and there's some tea being spilled. But I think it's because I'm the one open, out lesbian on YouTube that, calls out bullshit, honestly. That will call out the bullshit of the progressive left or of the right. But like, I've never had an issue with the right, so I haven't had to call anybody out. Unless it's religious people, then I'm just like, it's not even worth my time, because they're allowed to believe whatever the hell they believe, as long as they're not infringing upon my rights, fine. And I came out with a video about 2 months ago about leaving the progressive left. I never officially came out as conservative because I don't think I'm fully conservative. I think I'm like somewhere in the middle. And I've a lot of more conservative or right-wing channels or even libertarian channels have been asking for my opinions on LGBT topics, because I feel like I'm kind of an expert at this point.
Well, a few weeks ago, a lot of our fans started clamoring for us to talk to you, and I think your YouTube channel has been completely demonetized. Is that right?
It was up until like yesterday. It was demonetized for 5 weeks. Yeah. Okay. So it's going to take some time for it to. They remonetized me, but I had to change a whole bunch of stuff. Like, unfortunately, yeah. And it's funny because a lot of people were like, Arielle's been making the same content for 10 years. And apparently they demonetized me for having sexually explicit content. I've been posting the same type of videos for 10 years. So how come as soon as I came out as non-progressive, all of a sudden it's just like, and again, like people rally behind me, and I like the progressive, I'll just call them the woke left from now on, just so you guys, because I don't want to keep saying progressive, it's annoying. But the woke left likes to hate on cis, straight, heterosexual white men, and it's like the people that actually donated to my Patreon were cis, straight, white men. It's 9 out of 10 times it was those types of people that were being supportive. So I think a lot of these people are misunderstood. I think the far left, finds it easier these days to just hate on somebody for who they are, not what they believe. Like, oh, you're a man, you don't have a say. Or you're this, you don't have a say. Or you're cis, you can't talk on trans topics. And it's like, why can't everybody talk about every topic, and if it affects them in some way? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not going to talk about like gay men issues, it doesn't affect me in any sense of the word, but trans issues do affect everybody, because it's changing the definitions of the word man and woman. That affects everybody alive. I think everybody should have a part of the conversation, and I don't think I've seen that many people that are actually hateful about it. They're just cautious or curious or worried. I haven't seen that many hateful people personally.
And Arielle, so you touched on the whole trans issue. Now, I've got a couple of mates who are gay women, and they are, to use, how can I put this, correct terminology, absolutely fucking livid at what is happening, in particular what is happening to women's spaces. Can you touch on, particularly, why is this such an emotive subject for you, and why is it so important for you?
Well, first of all, it's gotten to the point where even this week is Lesbian Visibility Week. And I think it's Diva magazine, which is in the UK. It's like the one lesbian magazine over there, I think. Or it's like there's like 2 lesbian magazines in the whole world, and that's one of them. And because we're a very like underrepresented community, right? The trans
community depends on
too,
the genre, I have to say.
That's true. You're right. I know. Are we allowed to curse? Like when?
Curse or
whatever you want. Yeah.
When you porn. I mean, lesbian porn is one of the most watched, right? But yeah, it's gotten to the point where I was just having a conversation with my friend Mars, who's a trans guy, and we were talking about the Lesbian Visibility Week. It's a made up holiday. Like I did a whole series of videos years ago, and people believed me. I would just make up fake LGBT holidays, and people were like, "Yay, let's celebrate!" And I'm like, "I just made this up." I mean, it's a made up holiday it has good intentions, obviously, right? Lesbian Visibility Week, but they have, a trans woman, and I'm not saying trans women can't be socially lesbians, right? But the person that they're featuring has only been out for a few years, and they're in their 50s. Like you live the majority of your life as a heterosexual man. Maybe we shouldn't, take the 1 week or the 1 day, I think, which is actually tomorrow. It might be the 26th, Lesbian Visibility Day. Officially, it might be the 26th. Why are we constantly propping up trans women that identify as lesbians and not females? I don't know how to explain this, but it's like, people call me transphobic for saying trans women can't be lesbians. I've never actually said that, because I think there is a social aspect to gayness, right? Like if you appear, like drag queen goes out in public and passes as a woman, she's not going to experience homophobia. You know what I mean? Like in that moment. So there is a cultural aspect to it. So even if you identify as a woman gender-wise in your brain, whatever that means, right? There has been proof that trans women there's a part of their brain that looks more similar to somebody like myself. You're not going to know what it's like to live and be seen as a woman until you stop looking like a man. Like that's just how it is. You know what I mean? And like that's unfortunate, but you can't see inside somebody's brain. And it's impossible to know how somebody identifies until you ask them. And even then, most of the time people lie because they're ashamed, which is also shit. But yeah, like the taking over female spaces, it's a real thing that's happening. And a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't even happen that often. I don't care if it happens one time. It's something you need to talk about. Because if it happens one time and people think it's okay, it's going to happen more and more and more and more. From trans women, it's, what the funny thing is, it's not even that many actual trans women. It's most of these very young, very hip, woke, queer kids, that are somewhere like we call them the alphabet people. They're probably not even LGBT. They're like queer or like non-binary or some other made up gender. And they're like, trans women are women. And if you don't want to suck a dick, you're a transphobe. You're a transphobic, a horrible person, and these are like literally, you can go on Tumblr, you can go on Twitter, you can go on Instagram. These are real things. Like TERF is a slur. Go on that website, TERFisaslur.com. People are like, that's a transphobe website. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a real thing. And people are just documenting what people are saying, what queer activists are saying to lesbians. And it's just now starting to make its way into the gay community, but it doesn't happen nearly as often because gay men are men, right?
Mm.
And Arielle,
one thing I've noticed as well is I've spoken to a few of my friends who are gay, and one of the things they've said, and that makes them very concerned about some of the stuff around the trans issue, is that they feel like because a lot of them were gender non-conforming as children, they may well have ended up being
100%.
categorized and encouraged into being trans
100%.
simply because they were gay kids. Do you think that's a big part of the issue?
100%. I think that I think there was an article written, I mentioned it last year in one of my videos that I had with my friend Blake, who is legitimately, in my opinion, a trans guy. He has gender dysphoria. He had top surgery. He's transitioned in every way that he can.
You have a lot of trans friends for a bigot, I have to say.
I know. Well, I mean, rational trans people, but obviously they're just tokens, and they're the wrong type of trans because they agree with me. But yeah, most of the trans people, if not all of them that I'm friends with, are rational and very sweet, and they're just like, I want to live my fucking life. Like it sucks that I had to live this, that I had to experience this, but now I'm transitioned in whatever way that I can. And I mean, Yeah, my friend Blake and I did a video last year where we talked about the increase in the amount of people in the amount of females identifying as trans in some way has like quadrupled over the last few years, especially in the UK, because the UK is even more progressive than because it's not even progressive in my opinion, but progressive than the States. And there was also a study, I want to say it was the HRC Human Rights Campaign, which is based here. I think it might be worldwide, but I think it's actually based in DC, where like every year they're mentioning trans and non-binary identities and queer more and more in their like yearly reports, and the word lesbian wasn't even mentioned in the last 2 years or something. And it makes young lesbians that are, you know, gender non-conforming, which technically all lesbians are gender non-conforming if you really think about it, right? Because we're not conforming to the expectation that we're supposed to date men. So when you dive into things and look at them on a deeper level, you know, it's quite easy to see how a young lesbian or a young gay boy would think that they're trans. And this is happening more and more. Even on YouTube, there are people that are coming out more and more as detransitioners and realizing that they did not have gender dysphoria and they just hated their bodies. Maybe they had dysmorphia, or maybe they just were going through teenage bullshit. I did that. I hated my body for a long time because I wasn't feminine enough. But that doesn't mean that being trans isn't real. Like it is clearly a real disorder. Like it's a real, whatever you want to call it, a disorder of, you know, a brain body disconnect or something. It's a real thing. But because the word trans has been watered down to literally mean absolutely nothing but an identity, kids are very vulnerable. Teens are very vulnerable, and most of them just want to fit in. They're already, you know, some of them are already bullied or just feel ostracized in their community for whatever reason. And they're like, well, everyone else is coming out as trans and they're being accepted and they're being loved, and why don't I do that? And it's not the case 100% of the time, of course, but it's happening more and more. More and more. And there's something to the reason I'm talking about it is because it is happening more often than not to people that are female, and I think that says a lot too.
No, it's happened to my former colleague and a friend. Her daughter recently came out. A 12-year-old girl came out and told her mother, my friend, when I transition, not if, when. And at the age of 12 years old. And it's part of the reason that we think, oh, yeah, they're going to transition. They don't realize the medical implications that this is having on your body. And the fact is that you are going to become a medical patient for the rest of your life if you are a trans person.
Right. Which is unfortunate in itself. I wish there was like a cis pill. And trans people will tell you that too. Like a true binary trans person, right? Will tell you, like, if there was a cis pill, I would take it tomorrow. And I can't imagine what that would feel like. It's completely not even similar to being LGB at all. Feeling like you're born in the wrong body or feeling like your body is in some way wrong.
Yeah, you wouldn't wish it on anyone. I mean, we've had a few trans people on our show talking to them about it. And when they describe it, you know, it's not something you would wish on your worst enemy because it's not a pleasant experience. But let me ask you this, because one of the stats that we came out recently is that acceptance of sexual minorities, and trans people are included in that, even though they're not really a sexual minority. But anyway, has actually gone down quite significantly, which is an incredible, I mean, you'd have to work really hard in the 21st century to get people to be less tolerant.
I know. This is
what do you put that down to?
Well, maybe it's because, you know, in the UK, there are things like people punching, you know, woke people on the woke left are punching 60-year-old women for going into a fucking basement in a library to talk about women's rights. You know, it's like, and there's in Vancouver, they're spray painting rape crisis centers, saying that only females are. Have you not heard of this? No. There's a rape relief center in Vancouver that was spray painted with turf and bigot and all. These people, because they wouldn't accept women with trans penises. Women, right? Well, yeah, because it's probably not the right place for them, right? You know what I mean? Like, if they were raped, I don't even know. I mean, there are a lot of trans women that get raped, yes, I don't know if they still belong. Like, to me, if I was, I don't even know, I've never been raped, but I'm assuming if I had just been raped, I would not want to see somebody with a penis next to me, like, personally. Yeah. And it's not that, it's not a bigoted thing. It has nothing to do with the person being trans. It has to do with worrying about the person that had just been raped. So if there's a way that they can fix that, you know, that maybe there's a way, but people have to understand that it's not just like, no, we hate trans people. It's like, no, we care about this female who might be triggered by that. Hell, the friggin' trans woman alone is probably triggered by her own penis, like, most of the time. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want it there. So I think, hopefully, you would think they would understand it. A lot of them do. That's the thing. It's these radical queer extremists that I usually talk about in my videos. It's usually not binary, you know, rational trans people. It's these crazy extremists that want to break binaries, you know, which is funny because that's actually not helping trans people at all, because trans people want to go from one to the other, right? Mm-hmm. They want to exist within the binary. They don't want to break it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them, I also noticed there's a ton of, I have a video about this coming out soon, hopefully, but it's going to take me a little while to do some research, but there's an influx of cis straight white men, gamers on YouTube, that have been posting like hateful content about me and other like TERFs. And it makes me think, you know, like I sit there and I wonder why these people think that they are allowed to speak on issues, again, that don't affect them. If you're a dude and you look like you and you look like, you know, Francis, and you're just walking around and you know, somebody like me comes into your bathroom, you're going to be like, okay, like, what the hell are you doing here? But you're not going to feel threatened. You know what I mean? You're not going to get like, you know, it's a very different experience living as a man.
Hi guys, and welcome to my bedroom, or as it's otherwise called, Palacio Orgasmo. Now, this is a short video on behalf of the Angel Comedy Club. Now, you may not be aware, but there is something on the planet right now called the coronavirus, which is putting a little bit of a spanner into the works of a lot of people, especially comedy clubs, in particular Angel Comedy Club, which is where we film our show. And Angel have been so supportive to us. They've been absolutely brilliant. And they now need your help because they can't have any shows, they can't run a bar, but the problem is they still have to pay rent. So if you think a comedy club which puts on acts like Stuart Lee, Eddie Izzard, Maria Bamford for a $5 and lets us film for free is something that should exist in the world, I personally think it should, then all you have to do is give a little bit of money to the patron, or maybe become a patron yourself, or put in a little bit of money to the PayPal account. I will have links. There'll be links at the bottom in order for you to do that. Now, if you can't do that, no worries at all. We completely understand. But hopefully you'll be able to maybe pop down to Angel one day to see a live show from us or a whole host of other fabulous comedians. Stay safe and take care. And Arielle, I really want to sort of explore this idea of women's safe spaces, because I don't think men get it. They just don't. They go, I can't see what women are complaining about. Surely it's fine. I don't. And you use the example you use. But isn't part of it the fact that women on the whole tend to be physically weaker than men, which means that therefore you are more vulnerable? So I always use the example of a nightclub where if a man chats to a woman and a woman feels that she's uncomfortable with the situation, the one safe space that she has in order to get rid of the dude is to go and walk into the women's toilets. He can't follow her. She's safe.
That's very true too. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we remove that, all of a sudden that safe space is gone.
That's true. Yeah. That's what it's come to. I've been in a nightclub. Where was I? In Savannah, Georgia. It was an LGBT nightclub. And there was this, I mean, he was good looking, but like obviously not my type. But this like very handsome, tall, black, seemingly so straight man. And he comes up and starts talking to me. And I'm like, dude, you're at a fucking gay bar. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, people they just don't get it sometimes. So it's just to have somebody that looks, there was a really fun, I'll give you an example. There's a really funny tweet that somebody posted. It's a parody account. And I think somebody was like, how can we, he was responding to somebody, and the tweet that he was responding to said something like, how can we tell, you know, how can we deal with the trans women's bathroom issue? And the guy, so stupid. And he's like, well, we should just, he was being like a troll, but he was like, I should say she, because they identify as a trans woman, but like have a beard and everything. It's a troll account. I don't even know if the dude is real. But she responded with, we should have a button, 2 buttons outside of a women's toilets or any safe space for women. One that says, yes, I'm legitimately a trans woman, and one that says, and then you press that one, you go, and one that says, no, I'm taking advantage of this situation. And it's true. It's like, how could you really know? It doesn't, it's not like we're saying trans women have no women experience. Some of them do. Some of them legitimately live their lives as women for a very long time. But what happened, like the whole idea of self-identification is what a lot of women are saying no to. You know, these are people that look like you that can just call themselves women and expect to be treated as such, when it's like, you have no idea what it's like, in my opinion. You might like, okay, in your own head, whatever that means. But if you went into a woman's space and didn't see, to me, then you're not a real woman at all. Like if most women, and it might be a nurture versus nature thing, it might be very much a nurture thing. If you are truly a woman like you say you are, and you go into a space and you're not aware of how you're making other people around you feel, you're not a woman, because women are taught to be that way, right? Since I was very young as a kid, you are taught to pay attention to how your actions and even how your thoughts can make other people feel. That doesn't mean that men aren't like, you know, that men also don't go through shit. I'm not saying that. But there are different privileges living as a man and living as a woman that neither sex will understand until they live as that, you know?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. There's, you know, we talk about, you know, the different, what it's like to be a woman. So for instance, my girlfriend, I helped her, I'm a comedian, I helped her on a comedy club. And at the end of the show, we were letting people out and somebody felt a bit ill. So I had to sort of go and help man the door, get people out, bring people in. And my girlfriend came and stood right next to me. And I'm like, do you have to do this now? Is this the right moment to do this? And she went, I'm sorry, I've got no choice. There was a dude following me around the bar and he was really freaking me out. And that's never happened to me as a man.
Never.
And I doubt
it could, but it's unlikely.
Yeah, it's unlikely, but that's something that I never have to worry about, that I'm never concerned about. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we see the world through our eyes. And so when women come out and go, look, there's this issue, we go, well, it's not a problem for me. So why don't you just grow up?
Yeah. And then I think, again, with a lot of these woke gamer bros, you know, I think the funny thing is, and why I think this is happening, I'm not 100% sure yet. There's like at least 10 or 15 of them now that are just, I think it's, you know, I think they want to seem woke because it's cool to be woke these days, which is not actually woke at all, in my opinion. But I also think that they feel guilty for being cis, straight, and white. Like I really do. I really do. And man, it's a weird thing. It's, you know, it's like the only way to please the far left, if you are a cis, straight, white male, is to be like, I know that I'm privileged. I know that I'm this. I know that I'm that. I know that I'm that. And everybody else is a TERF and everybody's transphobic and everyone's racist. It's like, and that's what these guys are doing, like every single one of them. So it just makes me question, is this what they really believe? Or are they do they feel guilty for being privileged? Or do they just want a left-wing audience for whatever reason? Because most of the shit that they say isn't woke, like in any sense of the word, any sense of the word. Because first of all, they're speaking over trans people and they're speaking over females. So as a man.
Well, if these guys are watching, I'd just like to say, guys, stop it. Just enjoy your privilege as a straight white man. It's not going to last for very, very much longer. Just enjoy it. Don't feel guilty about it. Just be the straight white man that
you shouldn't feel guilty about how you live through the world. Right. What you should do is be aware of how others have to go through it.
Yeah. Right.
There's a big difference. Yeah.
But talk to me about the YouTube thing, because you said you had to make changes. What does that mean exactly? You had to make changes in order to get your channel remonetized. What did that look like?
I had to just change the wording in some of the videos, like the titles and the thumbnails of the more controversial topics. I don't know if that's actually what helped me. Like they don't tell you like why the channel's demonetized. They just tell you they just say, you know, it's very vague. I don't know how to actually say what they said because I don't remember. But it's not like this video has this wrong with it. Like they don't have time to do that. They're just like, okay, this channel's annoying me. Somebody complained about it probably. I don't know how it works. And they're like, fix some shit and then we'll get back to you. Because really like what it comes down to. So I think it was like 15, 20 videos. Some of them I privated or deleted. Some of them were just like sexually explicit, but like not even because they're sexual education.
Right.
And I've been posting that kind of content for 10 years. So why now, all of a sudden, is there something wrong with it? You know? So I don't know if it's actually YouTube that had an issue with it, or if it was just a whole bunch of people, you know, spamming my channel at once that had a problem. Like there's no way for me to know. I just know that I had to, even my network, they were like, well, we'll give you some tips and, you know.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do you think that if you were making content about, you know, I'm a, you know, trans woman with a penis, here's the best way to suck my dick, do you think that would be...
Can I just say, we're going to clip that and I'm going to make that go viral? Could you?
Yeah, just me saying that. Exactly. That's exactly what I am. I'm finally coming out as my true self, Francis.
And do you know what we could do? We could put a little beat behind it and turn it into one of those little dance anthems.
Exactly. That'd be brilliant. But do you think, I guess what I'm, on a serious point, is what I'm getting at is, if you were making content that was very woke and progressive and you were, you know, coming at it from that angle and it was sexual in nature, some of your videos definitely have been always from way back when.
From 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that you would have had the same experience?
There's no way for me to tell, like for sure. I will say that since I started becoming less of a progressive, I stopped being invited to YouTube events. So
we've never been invited to YouTube events. Fucking hell.
I will say that. But I also know that the two people that are like really cool with YouTube, that are part of the LGBT community, hate me. That are like, you know, involved in the YouTube side of the LGBT community. Like they actually have like a connection with YouTube or a contact at YouTube. One of them deals with the LGBT part of VidCon, and they despise me. So I wasn't surprised that I like wasn't invited to VidCon, even though I didn't want to go back anyway. Because it was always during Pride. So that just kind of would suck if I couldn't go to my own Pride parade. But also just because VidCon itself had become super, super, super progressively woke, you know, and you can't, it's literally like VidCon is the epitome of progressive YouTube, progressives on YouTube. At least when I went in 2016, I think was the year I went. I think it was 2016. And it's unfortunate because they're not allowing, the weird part of it is they're not allowing people that identify, that are women, that identify as women, that present as women, that are female, to speak about their issues. You know, it's only about the Q and the T at the moment, which, you know, on the more serious topics anyway. Of course, they'll have coming out panels and stuff like that, like great. But yeah, I think there are more serious issues that need to be addressed, and people like, you know, Rose of Dawn and Blair White and Sophia, there's a bunch of trans women that navigate those issues very well, in my opinion. And I take note of that, and I'm like, I respect them 10 times more as women, because they are, again, so aware of how their lives affect other women. That's a woman. Like, and it's true when you think about it, right?
Yeah. The one thing that I really wanted to talk to you about, Arielle, was I see your journey and my journey as being similar, because I'm traditionally, I would have seen myself always as being on the left. I'm a former school teacher, worked in 12 years, you know, underprivileged kids. You would go, yeah, that's somebody on the left. But more and more, I've just seen my own side go what I call tonto. And I think I can't be part of that. What was the moment for you where you thought, you know what, I'm done, I can't be part of this anymore? Was there a specific moment, or was it a gradual process?
It was like online, it was gradual. I just started disagreeing more and more with people and realized how crazy, in my opinion, that how irrational their views were. But what really solidified it for me was, and I said this in other interviews, I was going to Vegas to meet two internet friends of mine, Tara Babcock, who her name sounds like a porn star, but she's not, and my friend Paige, who actually was a porn star. And we were going to film, sex positive videos and stuff like that. And Paige started her own porn company, and Tara's just an awesome YouTuber. And I had never met either of them in person, and Tara and I had just become friends, so she didn't really know much about me. And then when we finally met in person, she was like, "Oh, I saw, I'm so glad that you're really chill and that you're, super open-minded, because when I saw your Twitter profile, it said like women empowerment and it had a little gay rainbow flag, and I thought you were one of those crazy people." And I was like, okay, like I can't even have a fucking rainbow flag in my bio anymore because people associate that with crazies. Like people need to know that I am not one of those people. Because I refuse to be people that are anti-science and anti-logic. And it just makes us all look like lunatics. And I think that's the truth of why, the rate of LGBT acceptance is down. It's not actual lesbians and gays and bisexuals. It's the radical queer and trans activists. Again, not even binary trans people usually, because they're usually really cool, like Blair. It's everybody kind of in the middle, and especially young kids, because they have the most time on their hands. They're the loudest, and they're also they haven't had the experience yet, so they think they fucking know everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't know if there's a word for that. But
the arrogance of youth.
Yeah, I guess that's the way. Yeah, they're very arrogant in their youth. Yeah.
And Arielle, do you think that there's a danger, because the reality is most people are sane, reasonable, rational. You sit down, you talk with them, you go, okay, we disagree, but I get where you're coming from. I don't believe that, but I understand your reasons for believing it. Are we now in this world where we get these very, very small minority of people who are incredibly loud, and we believe that is the argument, when actually it isn't? They're just a couple of nutters on Twitter who, because they're so loud, they're so angry, they're so polarizing, they get these huge numbers following them. So we think that they're actually the important ones, and they're not. They're just nutters.
Yes, I agree with you. But that doesn't mean that just because they're a very small minority, a very loud small minority, doesn't mean that they're actually not making waves like they are. Which is why otherwise I'd just be like, okay, they're just like shouting out into the fucking void. But situations like with Sydney Mardi Gras, I was invited out there to speak, and the crazies on Twitter, made a petition about me. 1,000 people signed it. Meanwhile, none of these people actually came to the event. Of course not. They're not going to come to the event. And they made it out they made it out as if I was this terrible person. And just my existence being in Australia was triggering for them. It's like, but they got Sydney Mardi Gras to take our event off of their website, because the truth is, as small as a minority that they are, those are the types of people that will show up and throw bricks at your windows. And Sydney Mardi Gras doesn't want to deal with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Gay
Pride Parade doesn't want to deal with that, so they just cave. They cave to the crazies. And the sad thing is, I get messages every single day, and even most LGBT people that are creators, either writers, bloggers, Instagrams, whatever, YouTubers, I would say 99% of us, well, maybe not 99% of us, 95% of us agree with everything that I say and are just terrified to talk about it. They won't, because they're afraid to lose brand deals. They're afraid to, upset a younger, section of their audience, but I'm not afraid of that. Like, there's a lot of young kids that still follow me, but those are also the people that hate me the most. And I think it would be mental for me to continue to try to win over people that already hate me. Mm-hmm. It's just not good for my mental health and my well-being. So I want to stand by my morals, and I wanted to gain a different audience of people that are rational and level-headed and can have an actual conversation and not just scream turf into the, scream turf at me on Twitter and then call me all these names, but actually having a solid argument.
And how is that? Because it must be really, really tough because, you know, to come out, automatically you're saying I'm different to the vast majority of people, right? So that automatically makes you an outsider. That's what that I imagine is one of the tough things about being gay, LGBT, all the rest of it. But you're now within your own community. You have now become an outsider within that.
Yes.
So you are now effectively isolating yourself from the people that you should be affiliating with. That must be really tough, isn't it?
It's not tough on my ego because I know my own worth, but it's tough on my brand. But it's doing better now. Like the people that are watching my content now are like, I don't see it. Like the comments that I get are like, why does everybody hate this girl? Like she's literally saying nothing wrong. And I'm like, thank God, because like I knew that, but like you see the same comments for 6 years since 2014, you know, since I started posting more T and Q content. You know, all the negative comments, they didn't get to me as much as people would assume, because I do have a very strong sense of self, but it made me question myself and not question my self-worth, but question my ability to communicate properly. Because I'm like, was I saying the wrong thing? And it's like, no, these people just aren't understanding what I'm saying. I've said it 100 different ways and they just don't want to hear it. And that's on, you know, at that point, I'm like, it's on them. And I'm just not even going to try to change my wording anymore. Like I've changed so much of the way that I say things over the years for the better. I do think that a lot of things that I used to say back then weren't perfectly worded. So I have learned a lot from that community. But at this point, you know, when the word woman is meaningless, I can't get behind that. No.
So talking about changing the words that you use, do you feel, having had this demonetization episode where essentially you're told there's something wrong with your channel, you're not told what it is, you have to make changes as best you can to try and understand what it was that got you demonetized in the first place, are you now kind of having to self-censor yourself going forward? Because just for people who don't know you, you know, your channel has over 600,000 subscribers. So your advertising revenue from that would be quite significant. So to lose,
you would think, but it's not. Yeah.
But still, I mean, I imagine, just basing it off on us and, you know, having 100,000 subscribers, you know, you can make a living with, I imagine, you know, having 600,000 subscribers. So you're essentially having that threatened over the fact that you've started to talk about a particular issue. Are you now feeling like you have to censor yourself going forward in order to protect your livelihood?
I do, but I won't. Like, I'm going to stand by my morals. I've always been that kind of person. Maybe it's because I'm a New Yorker. But it hit me that's the first time my channel's ever been hit like that. I don't even think I had any like strikes on my channel ever. You know what I mean? So it was just funny that it all happened a month after I came out with that video. So it does make me question things. But even so, it's like, I'm not even far right. I'm just not super progressive left anymore. And I still support the majority of left. Not like 50%. Like, again, I think I'm like a libertarian is what people call, which is what the old left is. So I've always been left. It's just the left moved even further. So I don't know I don't know. Part of me just thinks that YouTube found like an easy way to target me, maybe. But at the same time, the more I talk about things that I actually believe in, and I've always did that, but controversial things that I believe in, we'll say that, because I never really touched on controversial topics like this. The more I'm getting support monetarily from individual viewers, which ideally and hopefully would level out the AdSense, because I don't make much money on AdSense anyway, because most of my videos are controversial and sexually explicit. Not even sexually explicit, but sexual topics. So right. I don't really get ads on those videos anyway. But on the topics that I don't talk about either of those things, I'm missing a few $100 a month. So it did suck, you know?
And Arielle, why do you think it is that we seem to expect people who are in the LGBT community or an ethnic minority to somehow be left? And if they espouse views or say things that are not on the left, we see it as being problematic and want to expel them. Why is that?
I think it's just the groupthink and hive mind mentality. I think that we assume, well, not we, but people on the left assume that anyone that doesn't think like them is either stupid or a grifter, which I hate that word because everyone's calling me that now. And it's like, I wish I was, because the far, far, far right channels have not even looked at me yet.
Well, welcome to the club. Wait till that happens, because then they start attacking you as well. We've had that.
And like, that's not going to happen.
Grifters. We're left-wing grifters on Monday and right-wing grifters on Tuesday, and then back to being far left on Wednesday. That's just the turf that you're on now.
Yeah, exactly. I did an interview with one of my new friends, David, who is a Trump supporter, more conservative. I don't even know if he considers himself a Republican, but he made, and even if I disagree with his politics, it has nothing to do with that. The point of the video was stop bullying gay Trump supporters, stop bullying people that disagree with you, actually have a sit-down conversation with them, see where they're coming from, and you'll realize they're not all terrible people.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things he said in the video was brilliant. And he said the left, the progressive left, focuses so much on diversity of gender, sexual orientation, skin color, age, whatever. And he's like, but they all think the same. What about why not diversity of thought? Like, why do we all have to think the same? And I was like, fuck, like, smart dude. I was like, I didn't even think of that. Like, I obviously thought of it, but the way he worded it was perfectly. Diversity of thought is what the left, unfortunately, is what the LGBT community is lacking.
But it's not just the LGBT community; it's everything.
Any minority. Yeah.
But it's like we're both comedians in the comedy industry. It's the same. People are progressed and promoted and pushed for who they are instead of what they think or what their comedy is. So I think it kind of happens everywhere. Do you think there's a space to be carved out in the middle? Because I'm very much kind of in the center politically. Francis is a kind of rejected lefty. You kind of are starting to realize that you are as well. And the question that people always, and like I get asked like why I'm conservative all the time, and I keep having to say that I'm not actually conservative. Like I did an interview with somebody that a few weeks ago, and that was their opening question. And people assume all the time that if you're not
not far left, you're on the other side.
You're on the other side. Do you think there's a space to be just carved out somewhere in the middle for like sensible people who, they have their own views on things, but they still don't reject science completely, and they don't, they don't go down the crazy rabbit holes of the far right or the far left?
Yeah, I think there's more. I think luckily because of people like Dave Rubin and Blair, just anybody in the LGBT community that isn't left, that isn't super left, they don't even have to be conservative because neither of them are like truly conservative. It's carving out space for the rest of us to be like, wait, I can not be like super wokey and progressive-y and lefty and believe in 87 genders. I think just speaking about it helps. And I think I've gotten more comments and more likes on my videos than ever before. So I think people were afraid to talk about it until somebody else started talking about it, which was the same for me. And until people like Blair and Dave Rubin and even Buck Angel, who's not conservative, he's a lefty, but he's very aware of science. He's a trans guy and past one of the first transsexual porn stars, and he's just a sweetheart. All for female spaces, because even trans men that are female experience different things to cis men. But he's just awesome, and luckily the rise in popularity of those people gave way for people like myself to speak more openly about what they believe.
And when do you think, because you look at a lot of the media, and I can only really speak about the media in the UK, which is very, very left dominated. It's very, very progressive. The liberal arts, very, very progressive as well. When do you think our type of voices are going to become more acceptable in the mainstream? Do you think that's going to happen sooner rather than later? Or do you just see this situation getting worse, which is what I think is going to happen, sadly?
You're just a depressive, mate. That's all that is.
I know.
I think either way, it's job security for us because we have more to talk about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I hope that people start to come to their senses more and stop denying science. And I think people are getting fed up with the crazy far left, which is why the rate of acceptance is down for us. So I think people are realizing that they need to be more vocal, and it's happening just at a very slow rate because people are still very scared. They're still really afraid.
And why do you think they're afraid? Is it because, you know, people stand a very real chance of losing livelihoods, jobs?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They've told me. And there's also articles written about it, that because you have to remember, a lot of LGBT people already work in the arts and humanities fields that tend to be more progressive. You know what I mean? Like, how many like gay men accountants do you know? Like, obviously there's a lot, but in general, like, I used to work in advertising, like half of the company was LGBT. I don't know why we fluctuate that way. We flock to it. I mean, we just do. Maybe because it's good to express ourselves, or who the hell knows, but LGBT people tend to gravitate more towards the arts.
Yeah. Creative fields of various
creative
kinds.
Fields.
Yeah.
And that's where that's where the most progressive minds tend to be. So when you're more, you know, center or right, I would imagine it's super difficult to come out. Like the kid David, he's like, I've had nothing. He's like, I came out as conservative and I got nothing but hate from the left and nothing but love from the right. He's like, they don't care I'm gay. They do not care if I'm gay. They don't care if I want to get married. It's like, for them, it's more, I think more people now are conservative economically more than conservative socially. And I think people get that mixed up as well.
Yeah, there is a big difference. It's interesting because it depends what you mean by it. For example, in the UK, a lot of people are actually being revealed as socially conservative, but our conversation is very different to yours. So acceptance of, you know, gay people is completely universal, I would say. But when we talk about something like immigration, that, you know, reluctance or resistance to mass immigration would be a conservative issue that a lot of people hold.
Would disagree, right?
Yeah.
Would disagree on our.
But anyway, look, thanks very much for coming on. It's good to know your channel has been remonetized.
Finally,
I have a sneaky suspicion that you're gonna end up back in that position at some point if you continue. But then, you know, that's all of us right now, isn't it? With the way that things are going. The last question we always ask Arielle is, what's the one thing that no one is talking about that we should be talking about as a society?
I think I'm going to stick it with the lesbian issues. I think more people need to listen to issues that affect females and stop trying to be super woke about gender politics at the moment, and actually listen to why a lot of females are rejecting it.
All right.
I wish
listen
more people
to
would
women.
talk about
That's never going to catch on.
Certainly not in Russia, mate.
I'm from Russia, so yeah, not where I'm from for sure. But we'll see if we can make it catch on here in the West. Arielle Scarcella, thank you so much. If people want to follow your work, where do they go for that?
They could just search my name on any of the platforms and it'll come up.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
And we'll take care. We'll see you again. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, subscribe to the YouTube channel, click the bell button next to the subscribe button so you get notified when a video comes out, and follow us on all the social media @TriggerPod.
And also leave us a nice review on iTunes and spread the word.